Our military analyst, Sean Bell, is here. So the counter-offensive, been talking about it, well, for months. Was it going to start? I think around about 7 weeks ago it began. Certainly not having the desired effects, though.
No, it's not, but many analysts would say it's a bit too early to judge. I mean, one of the things that's been interesting about the counteroffensive, President Zelensky knows full well he desperately needs Western weapons and the West's support to actually prevail on the counteroffensive, and he wants confidence from the West that they can deliver. The challenge is that's probably raised the level of expectation now that Ukraine is going to struggle to achieve. Those Western weapons as well, some of them, like tanks, they had a lot of training that needs to be done, and as a result, there was quite a delay before the start of the offensive. If we look at a map of where the main offensive's lying at the moment, whilst there are sporadic battles all the way along the front line, the main areas around Bakhmut, where Ukraine is pushing back and trying to encircle the city of Bakhmut, but the main fighting is to the east of Zaporizhia, about 100+ kilometres of front line there, and that's where the time that's been the delays before this offensive started has allowed Russia to build some pretty impressive defences that are layered trench systems, dragon's teeth, which we can see, those pyramid shapes, but also extensive minefields as well. Now, the infantry can clear all that stuff, but it will be incredibly costly and take a hell of a lot of time. What seems to be doing is Ukraine's just blasting away with 155mm artillery rounds, but also using specialist Western equipment to target the Russian logistics supply lines and the artillery near the front. But unfortunately, the time it's taking means they're running very short of 155mm artillery shells. And whilst the West is spinning up production of those, it is taking time.
So, with Ukraine struggling, how can President Zelensky be confident he's going to pick up the pace, in his words?
It's an interesting line he's having to walk here. In Aspen, the Security Forum there, he recognised that we're entering a critical period and there was a lot hanging in the balance. But his point was Russian defences are going to take time to wear down. That's inevitable. And although we're in the 7th week, inevitably there are some positive signs here. First of all is that shortcoming in artillery rounds. America has huge stockpiles, 155mm artillery, but it's cluster weapon artillery. And, of course, we've been covering that in the news. The agreement to send that very quickly to Ukraine, and it's now already being used, almost certainly be quite effective at taking out the minefields and potentially creating some sort of breakthrough. And if they can break through that crust of Russian defences, the full expectation is that Ukrainian forces will actually flood through and make some significant gains, particularly because the Russian command and control is in a bit of disarray after Yevgeny Prigozhin's antics. The Russians aren't able to use the Wagner military group very effectively at the moment either. It's also worth pointing out Ukrainian using 9th Corps for doing their attacks, but 10th Corps is where they are battle-hardened warfighters and most of the Western tanks, etc., are there. That's not been used yet. That seems to be being kept aside, ready for the breakthrough. But the harsh reality is these weeks are turning into months, spring's turned to summer. Unless Ukraine gets a breakthrough soon, it's going to be troubling.
And just briefly, Russia continues to bombard Odessa, crucial, because that's where the grain stores.
It is. Ever since the grain deal was pulled, Russia's been pounding away, destroying the grain. But it looks likely there's a hidden agenda here as well. If you remember back to the start of the war, there were concerns that Russia was going to attack Odessa and use that as part of the bridgehead towards Moldova. Now, the fact is an amphibious assault against Odessa will be incredibly difficult, particularly when Russia's so busy now everywhere else. But it is forcing Ukrainians to think about where they put their limited resources, whether they have to defend there. But the harsh reality is President Putin is weaponising grain, and the only casualties of that are the poor and the starving of the world.
All right, Sean, good to see you.